Hey everyone, Jens Anso from my studio here in Denmark. I am so incredibly excited about this episode because I'm finally able to reveal a new old project that I've been working on for quite some time. This is by far the most important project that I've ever done. This is a design that I made 25 years ago. This project was fundamental for establishing my life as a maker and a knife designer, and now I'm unrolling it again. What we're talking about is the Anso Sheepsfoot. This is Anso history. This project started its life 25 years ago while I was in college as an architect and design student. It has followed me since in one way or another. It has become almost like a symbol of where I am today and what has happened for the past 25 years. I was doing my final exams at the School of Architecture in the springtime of 2001. At this point in time, I was making knives. I've been making knives for 30 some years by now, 34 years. And while studying, I made knives as kind of a student job, a way to finance my life a little bit. I worked various jobs as well while studying. I was a mailman for a good number of years. Knife making had always been something that was important for me. And I was studying industrial design and I was doing a lot of design work back then. So this is, at least for the time I designed it, it was a little weird design. This is a little utility knife and one that I designed kind of like an alternative to a folder. This was probably 2 years before I designed my first folder, and I didn't feel comfortable or confident enough to start trying to make folders, especially not with the kind of shop I had at that point. My workshop was in the basement of my apartment. It was a total of, I think, 9 square feet. I fit a belt grinder, a bandsaw, and all my hand tools in there. Anyways, I made the prototype in that shop. At this point in time, sales across the Atlantic was not all that common, but I had a strong desire to have a presence in the US. The way that I taught myself to make knives was by reading books on knife making, and it was all American books of knives. So obviously the design philosophies from American makers from the 70s, 80s, 90s had a lot of influence in how I started out making knives. So I really wanted to sell some knives to the US. This was also in the very early stages of internet forums. I recall Blade forums, Knife Network. I'm sure there was a couple of more forums back then. But I started, and this was late 90s, 97, 98, where I started frequenting the forums. This was designed in 98. I posted pictures of the knives that I made, and I asked people to write reviews. If they were willing to write a review on a knife that they bought from me or ordered from me, I would give them, I think, 25% discount. The review could be good or bad. I'm sure that the feedback would be helpful for me. And I had somewhat a feeling that the majority of the reviews would be good. I had enough belief in myself at this point that I understood that I was making a decent product at the time. Fast forward maybe 6 months, I was approached by a journalist from Tactical Knives magazine. And he actually saw my post about inviting people to write reviews, and he asked me if I was interested in him writing a review in the magazine that he was writing for. I was super excited about that. So we agreed on materials and a model Incidentally, it was the Sheepsfoot that he ordered. And then right in the middle of my final exams at the School of Architecture, an article came out in Tactical Knives about me and the Sheepsfoot design. And this was in May 2001. And it was a 5-page article, and I was so excited about this. What I didn't realize was that as soon as the magazine hit the newsstands, I started getting emails, I started getting letters, I started getting phone calls. Within a month from the issue came out, I had 100 orders for Sheepsfoots. And I was working out of a 9 square feet workshop that was more a miracle than anything else that I was able to work from that. I was living in a dormitory apartment. I was fully engaged in my final project at the School of Architecture and had absolutely no plans on becoming a full-time knife maker. So you could somewhat say that things happened kind of out of coincidence, but it also seemed like a path was just prepared for me. I had the plan of becoming somewhat of a name. I wanted to sell knives in the US. I had absolutely no idea that it would happen that quickly. Relatively fast after graduating as an industrial designer in June 2001, I took my order book to the bank and said, I need to buy a house where I can build a workshop. And back then, mid-2001, the whole loaning money situation was very different from what it is today, where young people can't borrow money at all to buy houses unless they're fully secured in high-paying jobs. But back then, I didn't have a job. I had an order book with 100 orders, and they said, here's a bag of money. Would you like some more? And I bought this house, and kind of the rest is history. But it all originated in this design. And that is why I'm so excited that I'm able to bring it back to life now, 25 years later. So the first 6, 7, 8 years of being a full-time knife maker, I was building these as fast as I could. One of the cool things that I remembered was that a Taiwanese knife group contacted me in 2002, I think, and ordered 25 of these identical knives made for their members of this small community. And 2 years ago, I made a similar project for that same group, except it turned into 50 fixed blades. I started making folders and had to make a decision that I can't do both. I can't efficiently dive into learning how to build folders while still making fixed blades. So I actually put fixed blades aside and focused on building folders for a good number of years. A couple of years ago, I started having an interest in building fixed blades. Again, this is how I build my company. This is something that I've done my entire life. So it had to have some kind of presence in my company and in my life. Over the years, I've had various success in putting this knife into production. Immediately after the article came out, I was approached by an American company who wanted to produce this design. This was to be my first contract with a production company. Unfortunately, things didn't evolve like that. In September 2001, the whole world changed, and the company CEO didn't feel safe in traveling. So that project was canned. Years later, a different production company approached me and wanted to make the same design, and we got so far as making some prototypes. But this design being so important to me, I was super frustrated to learned that they couldn't make it to my satisfaction. So I pulled the project. It's been sitting in the back of my head for all those years. But I also realized that for me to efficiently build this project, I had to think about it in a whole different way. And now I actually have the team behind me to make this happen. So this is a team effort. This is not your traditional custom Anso knife. While I don't like putting labels on things, this will be the introduction of what I have a working title that I call shop build. For a number of years, I have had shop helpers helping me around everything I do in the shop. But this project here is actually the first project where I'm much less involved than I'm usually is. Obviously, I oversee everything that happens in my shop. But this knife here, one of the interesting things is this isn't ground by hand on a belt grinder. This is actually milled on our CNCs. And to me, that is so groundbreaking to actually make a project where it allows me to make a project like this without devoting the next 6 months behind the grinder fulfilling these. And that's one of the other super interesting things that I've been dying to reveal. We've been working on this behind the scenes for many months. It has required that I bought numerous new machines. The new surface grinder made this project possible. Just bought a huge tumbling machine in order to make a finish, a tumble finish that I'm satisfied with. We're still working on the details on that. This is the first working prototype really, but we are going to be ready to roll out the project very soon, and when this video is out, the knives are on the website. This is the culmination of 25 years being in the knife making business, and I'm so overly proud of this project, and I'm so excited about finally being able to put it out there. So introducing a knife that I didn't build with my hands, that has taken me so long to accustomate myself to that idea. I've been designing for factories for, I would say, 15 years, but that's totally different. This is my shop. Everything that I've been working hard to accomplish here, all the knives coming out of this shop has been a little piece of me. So there's so much emotions going on in order to build a knife for me. So presenting this project here is also filled with so many emotions for me, in that I have learned myself not to let go, because I definitely haven't let go. This is so important that everything is right. But I'm so happy to have reached a point where I feel confident enough in the shop and the team around me that we can make this. Will this define as a production knife? I wouldn't say so. It's still made on my machinery. I'm still involved. We still have all the processes that doesn't really differ much from all the knives that we built here. The process of me actually taking a step back allows me to make this project. Because if this was to be a full custom Anso Sheepsfoot, it would never happen. You can see it two ways. You could see it like I'm allowing myself to step back, and that process alone allows us to put out projects that I would have never been able to fulfill just because time restraints. I work not a crazy long week, usually around 50 hours, but it's packed. I would never have been able to put a project on this out there if I was to do everything myself. So the original Sheepsfoot design was made very traditionally with scales that were glued onto the steel blade, 2 rivets and a lanyard tube. I wanted to keep the design as true to the original, but updated to modern standards and to my needs and wants for the design. I reached a point where, especially after starting to build folders, where I really loved being able to take things apart. Epoxy kind of defies that, so I don't generally glue much together in the shop anymore. Very rarely I will do some one-off projects, but the Sheepsfoot project, especially inspired by my Astra modular fixed blade project. The blade stays the same, but I wanted to be able to change the handle and change some of the details here. At first, I couldn't really solve the idea of a lanyard hole without using epoxy. The lined lanyard hole here is the steel tube. It was super important for the aesthetic look, but also the functional strength of the lanyard hole, strengthening the handle material here. So what we ended up doing was actually machining. And this is where I really love building a project like this. This idea would have been canned so fast in a production meeting with any company, because this little part here is just ridiculously expensive to machine. We machine this out of a solid billet of titanium just to make that little detail here. But what it does is that it allows us to put a little color on the handle scales. So these are titanium. The screws holding the scale onto the knife is titanium. So it gives a little flair to the knife. You can mix and match different handle materials. Gonna offer it in G10, micarta, carbon fiber, titanium, and one that is my favorite, it's Ultem, which is this amber colored plastic. It allows the end user to have some say in how they want their knife to look on any given day. You can change the scales yourself. You can buy new scales and change the overcoat for winter use, hunting use, fishing use, whatever you want. The blade itself and the little strange design is made so that you have a indexable grip between your thumb and index finger with the hole in the handle. You have the jimping here for a little speed bump before your finger reaches the edge. I've found over years of use that the Sheepsfoot design is great for delicate work, but you could also use it for whittling. It's equally well for outdoor use or everyday carry. It's small enough that it will ride on your belt in a kydex sheath in whatever angle that you desire, with the belt loop being interchangeable between these positions. So to me, this is the perfect alternative to a folder in a fixed blade. Let's take one apart and see how it works. The only thing you need is a Torx 8 driver. Sometimes you will need two, just because the barrel inside of the frame is free spinning. So in order to loosen the screws, you will need now and again an extra screwdriver. But here you have the essential build-up. You have the inside of the scale with the secret little crown A. The lanyard bushing is marked, in this case, with an R for right, and then the other side L for left. So it indexes perfectly into the handle. And that was needed because it's not symmetrically machined here. It's designed to just stand a little proud over the scale here. Incidentally, this is the original steel template that I used to build those hundreds and hundreds of Sheepsfoot by hand. I used the steel template to scribe the profile, clamp it to the steel, drill through pilot holes, and then grind everything on a belt grinder. So it was a very tedious, slow process, but that's how I built. I would guesstimate between 300 and 400 Sheepsfoot knives by hand. Now, obviously, we use the technology that's available for us now, which is CNC machines, automatic surface grinder and all that. And that allows us to make, in my opinion, a superior product. The steel is my ever so trusted RWL 34, which I've been using for, again, probably 25 years by now. And it's one of those steels where, in my opinion, If it's not broken, why change it? To me, it's a superior steel to a lot of the popular knife steels out there. When choosing a knife steel, it's always a matter of weighing what's important to you. Sharpness, stain resistance, edge holding. For production companies, ease of machining is also a point. That's not so much a point with custom makers like myself. But for me, RWL 34 just hits very high on all of it. And a cool upgrade, by the way, on this is that the spine has a radius all the way around, gives a really, really nice grip. It's just this added cool detail that it just adds so much to the feel and the quality feel of the knife. So let's put on a set of carbon fiber scales. I indexed the lanyard bushings in the handles. I will start out with showing the full construction here. These are all the parts that goes into building the Sheepsfoot. 4 handle screws, 2 handle bushings, pivot tubings, actually 2 handle scales, and the lanyard bushing. So these go together to shape the handle. Allowing myself not to make the most efficient product, but the product that gives me the most joy. Adding details like the lanyard bushing, the rounded spine, the polished center here with the index hole. It's just, this adds so much to my joy of building these knives. Having the team behind me now and the machinery behind me now to actually make more than just a handful of these gives me so much excitement. So just to keep things a little organized, I put 1 set of screws on 1 handle scale here with the inner tubings here, and then put it on the knife. Takes a little getting used to not dropping the lanyard bushing, but now it seems to actually sit quite well in place. A good idea is to reverse turn the screw until you hear a little click. That tells you that the threading is lined up and the screw fits in perfectly. These small screws have a tendency to actually try to screw itself into the barrel wherever it starts, and that little click will ensure that it goes in right. So that changed the knife pants into carbon fiber with amber colored titanium details. The Kydex sheath has a little history as well that is worth mentioning. 25 years ago, I've only heard about Kydex by reading in, I would say, Knives Annual. At that point, it was a relatively new product out there. So I reached out to a custom maker who had devoted a lot of time in making Kydex, Bud Neely, and I met him at, I would like to say, custom knife show later on in Paris and later on in New York. So we formed a friendship, but he was so helpful 25 years ago, helping me to learn how to use Kydex, how to order Kydex. This was in the early days of the internet, so ordering Kydex was by fax. I think that was the first time and last time I ever used a fax. That allowed me to use a material that hadn't seen any use in Denmark whatsoever, period. And I think it would take at least another 5 years before any other knife makers in Denmark were using Kydex. But this is the Anso Sheepsfoot, and I'm so proud and so happy to be able to release it now. I'm so happy that I'm finally able to now present the 25th anniversary Anso Sheepsfoot. With this knife, I engaged the whole team into producing this, and I'm just ecstatic about the result. For me, this is one of the most significant and important projects in my career, and I really wish to have this knife in as many hands as possible. So visit my website at ansoofdenmark.com and see if this is something for you. I think it is.